and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kitty. I am a birth and postpartum doula. I'm also a registered general nurse. I'm a hypnobirthing instructor, an antenatal educator, and a lactation consultant. Here on my channel, I talk about all things pregnancy, birth, and breastfeeding. So anything that's in relation to that is where you're going to find it. I hope that you subscribe, enjoy the video, and click the little notification bell if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of my videos. In this video, I'm going to talk all about the things that you can do to induce your labor at home. So these are natural things that are going to be very much evidence-based. That's what I'm all about here on this channel, and I'm going to run through my top 5 things that you can do to start your labor at home that really work. So tip number 1 when it comes to inducing your labor when you're coming near to your due date, or perhaps your care provider has started to have discussions with you around the topic of a medical induction. So one of the first things that I like to talk about is the power of visualization. So when it comes to my work as a hypnobirthing instructor, we talk about this a huge amount, but really visualizing your baby moving down and your cervix softening and opening, and visualizing the birth itself happening is a huge component to encouraging labor along. There are 2 reasons for this, and one of the first reasons is that for labor to actually start and progress, you have to have this sort of hormonal concoction that happens, and this hormonal cascade that happens when your baby is ready to come. We still, from a scientific perspective, don't really know whether that is stimulated by some sort of chemical release in baby, or whether it's purely just in body, whether it's to do with some chemicals released by the placenta. But overall, we know that there are several hormones involved, one of the huge ones being oxytocin. And this will very nicely lead me on to my next point. But in terms of oxytocin release, you're talking about relaxation, you're talking about your deep breathing, you're talking about intimacy, things that make you feel safe and cozy and warm. So dim lights, familiar music, familiar scents, intimacy with your partner, and visualization is a huge component of that. So if you've been practicing things like hypnobirthing or hypnobabies to prepare yourself for birth, now is a really good time to practice that. So to try not to let yourself get carried away with the stress and the anxiety that can sometimes ensue around the topic of medical induction. So visualization is huge. If you are unfamiliar with me and my channel, you'll know that I actually teach hypnobirthing, and I have an hypnobirthing e-course, and a huge component of that is visualization. And I have some cards and topics that I like to use personally when it comes to visualization for birth, and one of them is the sort of opening of a flower. So you are using the power of visualization and the power of positive affirmations to visualize your body opening gently and softly like a flower would when it comes to full bloom. And visualizing this along with using your other techniques can be really powerful when it comes to encouraging your baby's birth and your little baby's arrival. So my tip number 2, it comes along very nicely with the last tip. So when we talk about this hormonal cascade, one of the ones that's really important is the hormone of oxytocin. And the other hormone that kind of comes about are these prostaglandins, which in actual fact, these 2 in their man-made form are what's used when it comes to a chemical medical induction. So you might hear of syntocin, which is basically the medical made version, or the man-made version of oxytocin, which is what naturally occurs in our body. And the other one would be natural prostaglandins, which we also use in the prostaglandin form in either gels or pessaries when it comes to medical induction. So what we want to release as many of those in our body as we possibly can. So huge way to do that is by getting intimate with your partner. So there are 2 reasons for this. Both kissing, cuddling, and that feeling of intimacy and closeness release loads of oxytocin. So it doesn't necessarily mean having to have intercourse with your partner. You can just have a cuddly night on the sofa, all snuggled up together with loads of kissing and snuggling. But intercourse itself is fantastic, because if your partner happens to be male, when your this sperm is released, it forms a sort of softening and ripening effect on the cervix. So you're talking about having intercourse and basically just resting and just relaxing and enjoying it. If it's something that's not comfortable for you, leave it out and try all these other tips and tricks instead. So my next tip then is going to be nipple stimulation. So this is a huge component or proponent if I ever am with a client and I notice that things are kind of slowing down and we're looking to amp our contractions or surges back up again. Nipple stimulation is huge. You can either get your partner to do it, you can do manual stimulation yourself, a little bit of tweaking and twiddling, only doing what's comfortable for you. You might also find that doing a little bit of antenatal expression might be something that can get things started. A lot of women will find, oh yeah, I was just doing a little bit of hand expression at home, and then I noticed getting kind of little kind of cramping on and off, and that's obviously labor kind of starting off. So you can also use a breast pump to do this. This is a great time to try out a breast pump if you've bought one but you haven't yet given it a trial run. So what happens is as your nipples are being stimulated, you release that cascade of oxytocin in your brain, which of course is one of the hormonal precursors to getting labor started. The next one doesn't have heaps of research to back it up, but this is the use of pineapple. So what many women will do is they will just cut up a full pineapple, but the true reason why we believe this to work is that the core of the pineapple, so that hard center that generally most of us would avoid, contains bromelain. And bromelain is a protein which is thought to soften the cervix. So make it up into a little smoothie, add it to my next tip, and as one of the ingredients list. Only if you like pineapple. Again, one of these things that I'm very much, you've got a list of things to try here. Try which ones suit you. You don't necessarily have to try them all. So my next tip when it comes to starting your body naturally kickstarting labor is to eat 6 dates a day. So generally I like to see them being 6 medjool dates a day, but just date fruit in general is fantastic. So you're looking to eat about 6, so about a handful every day. The reason for this is because it has a prostaglandin-like ripening effect on your cervix. It's actually one of the very highly researched, and there's quite a bit of evidence behind this strategy for inducing labor. So starting this from about 36 to 37 weeks, you want to eat at least 6 date fruits per day. You can add them to smoothies. I've got some recipes over on my Instagram page. Go and check that out. And the research behind this shows that women who've consumed dates from 36 weeks onwards tend to have shorter labors. They tend to have labors where they have less medical intervention. They also tend to have more positive birth experiences and birth outcomes, as well as less likely to require anesthesia. So it's definitely worth a bash. There are lots of ways that you can hide it in your food, so even if you don't particularly like them, it's always worth trying, but certainly one that I always recommend to all of my clients. So my next tip, my second to last tip actually, is the use of acupuncture or acupressure. So on your body we'll have several points that are particularly known for inducing labor. I always recommend seeing a practitioner for this, although there are several different points on your body which you can of course use at home when you're doing a little bit of gentle massage. So there are points both in your feet, in your little hands here, on the back of your neck, so it's a good excuse for a shoulder and foot rub, but definitely worth trying. Again, there is some research that backs this one up, but it's not ever going to do you any harm, so it's certainly worth trying. And last but not least, when it comes to my top tips to getting labor started, we are going to look at the Midwife's Brew or cocktail. So this is something that actually really worked for me as well as other clients of mine, and this is something that you must check, as with all of these other induction forms, with your care provider the next time that you see them before you go down this route. So this is the essentially you're masking the taste of it with several other ingredients which can also be known to have a labor inducing effect, but the primary ingredient is castor oil. So you want pure castor oil with no added ingredients, and you can add it to things like orange juice, pineapple juice. Many people will use maple syrup or date puree. So there are several different combinations online. I'm going to leave my favorite list, my favorite ingredients list down below for what I used. It does not taste very nice, and it does have a little bit of a side effect in that as many women do experience themselves anyhow, your body tends to sort of cleanse itself and you will be running in and out to the loo. So you may find that due to the proximity of the uterus and it being so close to the bowels, this is what generally seems to stimulate labor to start. So if you're not interested in having that little yucky side effect, definitely not the induction form for you. But if your care provider is looking at going down the route of medical induction and you've sort of got that date looming in the background and you want to try absolutely everything that you can to get yourself in labour before then, absolutely worth a bash.